So we have our guitar piece burnished, and I'm ready to do some sanding. As you can see, magazine paper has a gloss to it. And the reason I want to sand it is I want to take away that gloss. So when I spray it with water, it will absorb into the paper. And once water absorbs into that paper, it'll sit there for a minute, and I can take my fingers and it gets mushy, and I can rub the paper off, but it leaves the ink stuck to the beeswax on that other side. And so typically I'll use a 150 grit sandpaper. I'll fold it into like a little trifold so that I can get a grip on it and just start lightly sanding the top side of the composition. I want to take the gloss off, and I typically go a little bit further and take some of that colored ink that's sitting on this side, the upside, so that I'm ensured that there's not going to be anything to obstruct the water from going into the paper. This is probably my least favorite part of the whole process. Cutting paper is boring, but man, sanding is hard on the fingers. It's time consuming. Dust gets everywhere. And there's been times I will run my shop vac, just sit it here beside me so it keeps some of the dust out of the studio. Usually the larger pieces I do that. The smaller ones, this one isn't too bad. I mean, it's 24 inches square. Hopefully this won't take too long. But I'll put on the time lapse and let you watch me sand this one away. So I want to show you, occasionally this happens. Well, not occasionally, almost every time that I'm working on a painting, this happens. I think I've cut all the paper of the template off and replace it with magazine ink or magazine paper. And then I run across an area as I'm sanding and I'm like, that doesn't feel right, because the magazine paper has a different feel to it, look to it when it's being sanded. And I've noticed I got two little pieces right here. I don't know if you'll even be able to tell from the video. All right, there's one there and there's one there. I've heated it about after I wiped off the dust so I can do surgery. So what I'll do in a case like this is I'm going to take that piece of paper up, and the way I can tell, if I flip it over, it's white underneath. That means it's just the regular paper. And I have a feeling I got two pieces here. This is a pain in the butt, but it's part of it. And there are times when, if it's a small piece like this, I just let it go. But because of the location of these two, they're right behind or below this knob that's on the guitar. Yeah, that one too. I have two of them. And if I left those out, that void would make that knob look weird. So I'm going to fix it. So what I do is basically what I would normally do when I'm cutting the template. I'm just going to take off each of those pieces, and I've looked at my image to see what exactly I need to put in the place of that. So it's just a kind of a grayish color. It's a piece of metal, which is part of the base of that thing. So I'm going to go a little darker than what I feel like it should be. I like going darker in cases where I'm not sure, because I can always lighten it up. But if I don't go dark, and it needs to be dark, it's hard to go darker. Usually have to use something like a graphite to darken up an area, and it doesn't always work like I want it to. All right, so there's one piece. Let's do number two. Really weird, both of these pieces. I guess after the burnishing and heating it up, they soaked up a lot of beeswax. So they're really thick between the beeswax and the type of paper. All right, so got those two in place and burnished, and we're ready to go back to sanding. I've got almost half of it sanded. We'll go through and do the rest of it now.